people may or may not know, but I'm Dutch. I had to actually go buy a flag because Dutch people don't have flags. And one of the things that people in Hollywood and in England love to make films of is our good friend Vincent van Gogh, which they and then proceed to completely mispronounce him in any of a dozen different ways, all of them wrong. His name is Vincent van Gogh. Yes, it's unpronounceable. You're welcome. Probably not the oldest movie around, but one of the more famousest one is Lust for Life with Kirk Douglas as Vincent. The interesting thing about all the three films I'm going to talk about, both the bigger films are not called Vincent van Gogh, maybe because of pronunciation, I don't know, but they have a different title. So this one's called Lust for Life. I think the reason that these films are made is that apart from being a wonderful painter and a very interesting character, Vincent also wrote a lot of letters to his brother Theo, who's always called Theo in the films, but his name is Theo, to Theo, and we have all of these letters. And while Vincent was definitely not a writer. I mean, he was even not quite sure that he was a painter, but he was definitely not a writer. But now that we have all his thoughts with his images, people feel that they want the story complete on film. And from there, the problem starts. Because the actual history, from the letters, it's not complete. The end is missing because he didn't write anything past the end, obviously. We don't know what happened. And when they made Lust for Life, some of the facts that we now know were not known then. So they're sort of going with what's in the letters, but fleshed out in a Hollywood sort of way, which I have this biggest problem I have with this movie is that the history is not actually correct. They do so much reshuffling of the history that it's not history anymore. Combined with the fact that I understand, but all of these versions that are not actually Dutch leave out a juxtaposition that we have in the Netherlands, which is Protestantism versus Catholicism. And Vincent was actually born in North Brabant, which is absolutely bastion of Catholicism. However, he and his family were not. They were Protestants. In fact, his father was a Protestant minister. And that juxtaposition and the way he would have gone to school with the local kids would have made a big impact. And it is in none of these movies. So that's one. None of these movies take in that, yes, Vincent had problems at school. I think exacerbated by the fact that in his time, you were not going to school beyond age 12. And so they had to do something after. Also, when he first went to school, actual Vincent first went to school at age 8. He was in school and they took him out. We don't exactly know why, and then they homeschooled him from there. So something went wrong. We don't know what. And then they tried it again with the secondary school, which was not a mandatory school. And he went to a boarding school for that, for something that should have been like three or 4 years, and he only stayed 2. But that ended because of lack of funds, not... I don't think it had anything to do with his performance. In that really bad schooling, all of that bad schooling, he learned Dutch, of course, English, French, and German. And English and French to a proficiency level that he later could go on and teach, be assistant teacher in England. And he was a seller of paintings in France. And he spoke to every Frenchman in a normal way. So this guy was a language dude. And these movies, you know,
Not a word.
not a word. So this is all missing. What for each individual movie, I'm going to say what was the best thing about it. For Lust of Life, the best things, a couple of different things. Kirk Douglas he looks exactly like the painting. He looks exactly like Van Gogh's self-portrait, the one with the blue background. He looks exactly that. The one with the hat. He looks exactly like that. And this film actually leaned into this really well by all the scenes that he paints them in the wrong moments in the time story, but when he has like the aardappel eaters, the potato eaters, they show a scene of the lady with the big bonnet and the other lady with the big bonnet and the guy with the big nose, and they have people, actual people for this. It's awesome. I love it. It's so beautiful. Gauguin, who is probably not quite as sturdy as Anthony Quinn, but he was pretty sturdy on his picture, because I did check the picture. Anthony Quinn and Gauguin, yeah, yep, they also look alike. They had perfect. The casting so perfect, and Kirk Douglas and Anthony Quinn are such great actors, and they can pull off anything. So. One thing also I like about this one is the tantrums that Van Gogh has. He tantrums like crazy, and he was known for that. And so the next version tones that down. And no, it was clear that this guy was so impossible that people just went, oh, because the look on his face, the moment he opens his mouth, and by the way he moves, and you can see it in this movie, and it's wonderfully done. I love it. What was also, and it's more of an okay, is that they made a step of pronouncing the Dutch nearly correctly. It's very hard to do it correctly, but there is a chap by the name of Bokma, and I could recognize him as Bokma, which is it's a Dutch name, so. And so they made a good step at that. So yay, okay, that's good for them. But the messing up the timeline, I was not very happy about. One thing they couldn't help is that in 1956 when they made this, and I think this is from a book as well, so the book is probably a little earlier, people didn't quite know what the problem with Van Gogh was, certainly at this time. Now they have some sort of idea, so they sort of leave it in the middle. He has problems, and I think that's probably a translation mistake, because they give him seizures, and I think would have been toevallen in Dutch, and a toeval is not necessarily a seizure, it's any sort of episode. A fit, an episode, but not only specifically a seizure. So I think somebody translated it wrong and then went for that. Also because I don't know what it would have said in the original French, because that was diagnosed by a French doctor. Through letters to Theo in Dutch, you have a big mess, I think. So they go with seizures, and so they have Kirk Douglas do a seizure, which he does. Hey, he can do it. And that's probably not specifically what the problem was. Later, as I understand it now, is they say that he had a bipolar disorder and exacerbated by bad living, syphilis, and it's a bad time. It's a bad time to be sick of anything. The thing that becomes very clear is that they have no idea how to treat it. And basically, bipolar disorder has not been properly treatable until 30 years? Last 30 years or so? Before that they had some shitty medicine, and before that they had no medicine at all. And he is before that. Before they had no medicine, but they had some idea. They don't even have an idea here. So the medical care that he's getting getting 2 sets of medical care, a French hospital and an asylum. And these seem to be really good, but in trying to get him back on his feet. But like I said, they have no meds, so it's a still untreated bipolar disorder that's being managed. And then he graduates to a single doctor dude, and that's a problem. And Vincent actually writes it in his letters to Theo. I don't think this doctor is going to help me because it's the blind leading the blind. He's just as crazy as I am. And since he was not, there was nothing else he could do, so he stuck with it. But that's the last stop for him, indeed. This guy. That's where it goes wrong. And we don't know what happened, so don't come here for that, because we don't know what happened. Lust for Life is beautiful, but not historically accurate. So I recommend it, but keep in mind, also read the Wikipedia for the actual proper historical sequence. Second thing I watched, since I... the thing about Vincent van Gogh's life is that we know it ends really badly. He ends up dead by his own hand, and we know that. So anytime you watch a film about him, that is, at least that's going to be how it ends, and sometimes that's the mainstay. And Painted with Words from 2010 starts with him in his asylum. Cumberbatch is playing him, and in this version, Cumberbatch doesn't look anything like him. But I don't think that's the point of this one anyway. This one is actually more of a docudrama than an actual movie. There's a lot of acted scenes, but they interpose it with interviews with people of the time, which of course are actors because that long ago. But they make a point of saying every spoken word in this, except for the narrator, is what people said at the time in letters and in statements. So I appreciate that in this. And like I said, Theo and Vincent corresponded a lot. So there's a lot of stuff that was said, and you could do a lot with that. And so this is called Painted with Words. As the second thing to watch, I think it was a good choice. The realism of his sickness, they showed in the beginning, and then they toned it down a little bit. Because, yeah... it's upsetting. 19th century sucks. I mean, sorry, it does. And the other thing they toned down was tantrums. Because British, this is BBC. And they don't want to see Vincent throw a tantrum, I suppose. I don't think that's realistic. He threw tantrums. He had screaming matches with people. Gauguin being one of the bigger ones. He had screaming. Every person he lived with, he had screaming matches with, except for his dad, because it's his dad. It's well researched. It was by Anthony Hutton, I don't know, but Alan Jantop, I do know. He is a pretty big BBC writer of all sorts. He does the introduction, and so if you ever see his name on something, it's going to be quality stuff, and it is quality stuff. I agree, absolutely. The timeline is better than Lust of Life, because BBC does take that seriously. The only thing that every version brings up is the ear. The ear happened, but there's some doubts of how much, and also what happened to the ear afterwards. There's a story that he took it. Yeah, the peanut gallery is putting his fingers in her ear. There's a story of that he took it to a hooker as a gift, and it's probably not true. It's probably not true. So, but it's in every single version because it is such a great story. I mean, juicy and drippy and ew. And somebody's barfing behind the camera right now. So we don't know what happened at the end. There's a point at which Theo gets married, and then he has a baby. And in all this time, from the point that Vincent couldn't hold down a job, and it was very clear that he couldn't, and he started to do the painting thing. Theo has been sponsoring him in money to rent a place and canvases and food and all for years, for the entire 10 years that Vincent did his work. Theo paid for it. But now Theo has a wife and a kid, and that means money problems. Now it's money problems. And at this point, Vincent is in the asylum, which also costs money. Going to that other doctor, I think that other doctor probably was sponsoring him. Like I said, there was something wrong with this dude, but he did have money, so he could sponsor an artist if he wanted to do that. But there were money worries, so that was one thing. Money worries on one side, health worries for Vincent on the other, because he was getting better and then he wasn't getting better and he wasn't getting better, and it's a yo-yo, complete yo-yo. And in the middle of that, he ends up with a bullet in his stomach. We don't know where the gun came from. We don't know who did it. He says that he did it himself, but he could be covering for somebody for who he says, I'm not going to let them have the blame for something, for me being an ass or something. But as a way to commit suicide, it's a very dumb way. Yeah. It gave him a chance, or it gave Theo a chance to be there at the end. But we don't know anything. We have some police reports. 2 different doctors say 2 different things, the ones that were there. We have the bad doctor who did nothing, and the other doctor who said that absolutely weird and strange. And so we have questions, and each of these versions has to make some sort of conclusion. Who did it? Did he do it himself, and why? And this is all, of course, not historical. And in the docudrama version, you can leave it open some more, and then there's a still newer version, something called the Loving Vincent, which is a Polish production, very interesting, with an English cast, UK Polish co-production, and they do a completely different version, because we have the Hollywood version with Lust of Life, we have the interviews, BBC style. BBC, and then we have the last one is fanfic. It is missing scenes fanfic, where they write the missing scenes from after it happened. They follow the son of the postman who would come to Vincent and deliver the post from Theo, and bring the post from Vincent to the post office. And this guy was in his life for a very long time. It's the one with the beard. So we'll show you this guy, because Vincent made portraits of everybody. He also made a portrait of every person in this guy's family, including the son, which is a gentleman with a hat and a yellow blazer. And they took yellow blazer guy, and they gave him a mission of, after the fact, bringing a letter from Vincent to Theo, not knowing that Theo has also died. They died pretty close on after each other, and Theo was actually quite a bit younger than Vincent as well. Yeah, and so they tell the entire story, but sort of backwards and sideways. So this is not one I would say go watch it first, because you get the story is completely all over the place. It is very beautiful, because what they did with modern 2017 tech and Polish stop motion animation, it's Polish, that's not known to most people outside of Europe, but Polish stop motion animation, claymations, are famous. So many of them, very beautiful. This is not claymation, this is paintmation. They do all the scenes in the paints, and the characters from the portrait in the paint. They'd have the actor do it and then repaint the entire thing by hand, 12 frames a second. Oh yes. And put it all. So everybody who had a portrait that is part of the story, they put in the portrait style and animate them. It's gorgeous. So pretty. And the story, they go into the depth because this young man wants to know what the hell happened. And we don't know. There's a lot of questions and we don't know. So you're still open. If there is the only thing I didn't like about this movie, and that I think that's probably me, is 12 frames per second. I can see that so much. It's. I hope that in another 10-15 years they'll do an upscale to 50 frames a second and some AI upscale. It should be possible, but it's so beautiful because they have like the Starry Night, but animated. The portrait of the bad doctor. There is a portrait of him sitting like that and animated. And they do the research. They also did the same thing as the BBC one, and they stuck to mostly what was written and what was known, and then made up the fanfic stuff to tie it all together. I loved it. It was beautiful. Yes. As for the real guy, we now think that he had bipolar disorder. And that was not treatable in 1890s. That he was out of luck completely. But even if we say that now, in another 25 years, people may think something else. The problem with diagnosing somebody that long ago, you have to go with what you heard about it and what he did and what we know about what he did, and we don't know what he also did, but we don't know about, and. There could have been a lot of other things that was going on. It could have been something else. Who knows? Yeah, I wanted to add that Vincent's story is a mental health story. It is the sad story of a man who has possibly a condition that we could now help, but at the time, forget it. And this guy just deteriorates over a course of, 15 years. And it's so sad. And whenever they pick it up in Doctor Who or whatever, you have to be aware of that. You have to do something with that. And not monetize somebody's misfortune like that, I'm not accusing Doctor Who of that. I think they were pretty nice about it, but you have to be careful about that. That you're not... remember him for the beautiful pictures he made, and not for the tantrums or the... stories of ears or whatever, remember him for the letters if you're a reader, and his drawings, and not for his disease. I think that's what I want to say. Another thing with this entire stack of films is none of them are Dutch. I did look for something Dutch because of course, and I did not find a video version. Plenty of museum-style documentaries, of course. But there was a radio play, which I haven't got because I see the see the peanut gallery looking at me. Do you have it? No, I don't. But I know it's out there, and it's 7 hours long. And I think, based on those letters, I think that's much fairer way of doing this. Because there's a lot of the talk between Theo and Vincent. And the way that Vincent talks about art and pictures. And yes, you would like to have visuals as well. But long story, but we had a really good period for radio plays in the Netherlands. And not anything for video or television. So this is what you get. But... I think 7 hours is about the right time for this story, and an hour and a half or 2 hours it's not enough. They skip everybody skips over the start of this guy's life, except for maybe the Loving Vincent one does a little bit of when he was young. But I think that's part of his life, when he was young, and how it went in school or not went in school, and the stuff that he was good at, which was languages. If you want to see his paintings, there is now, because he didn't sell much in his life at all. At first we thought he was only sold one thing, but it turns out there was actually a second sale. There's two things, in his lifetime, yeah. The works of art went into the world in two ways. Apart from these two little cells, is that he would personally swap them with his fellow artists. So they would get stuff and he would get of their stuff. And the rest went to Theo and he put it aside. And then when he died very shortly after, his mother and his widow took care of it for a long time. And as time goes by, in 1962, their descendants sold it to the Dutch government with the understanding that there would be a dedicated museum. And there is now a dedicated museum, het Van Gogh Museum at Museumplein Amsterdam. It was built to expect about a visitor amount of about 50,000 per year. And pretty soon they had 1 million visitors a year. So they built an addendum to it, and if you want to go and see it, ever, get your ticket for the museum first, and then get your flight or train, okay? There's going to be queues. You have to pre-order your ticket and be early, very early. It's awesome. And there's another set of the other works have been collected at the Kröller-Müller Museum in the east of the country. So that's your secondary place to go. And I've been reliably informed from over there that you also need to pre-book tickets for that one. Or at least check that you should pre-book, probably. There's a lot to see. There's also some stuff in the Guggenheim in New York. But let's not talk about that. I would like to see a Dutch movie, but I understand why it doesn't exist. Because anything under 7 hours is not going to be able to tell the story accurately enough that a Dutch person is going to be very satisfied with it. And this obsession that especially the Brits have with Vincent makes me very tired.
What did you think of the Doctor Who episode, Vincent?
Yeah, that's that same obsession again. Guys, you don't know what you're talking about. It's nice that he's there, but they have no idea. They have no idea. And I'm Dutch and I have hardly any idea. I'd probably not have him say anything that he didn't actually write, because he's a real historical character. He's not Spider-Man, you know. You can do write whatever for Spider-Man, but for Vincent maybe not. It's not. No. No. I do like that they most of these versions see that the art is very, very important. Even the BBC version, which is not very visually evocative, makes sure that it shows some of the artworks that you haven't seen so many of. When they have Vincent talk about how to draw people in the fields, they show some of the sketches of the people in the fields. And so they do realize that the pictures are very important. And the Loving Vincent is all picture, so I'm upset that Lust of Life is not historically more accurate. Some of the choices they made in the timeline are kind of unnecessary. Why? He actually spent some time in England and fell in love with the daughter of the landlady there. Who was already with somebody else, so couldn't stay. And so they always cut the entire British bit out. The BBC one has a little bit about it, but not much. It's not complete enough, you know. Life is more than 2 hours and 5 minutes. But Kirk Douglas was wonderful. Benedict Cumberbatch is wonderful, and everybody was wonderful. So, and that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.